Elder Nelson was born in Salt Lake City, Utah on September 9, 1924, to Marion C. and Edna Anderson Nelson. Elder Nelson had many musical talents. As a boy, he learned to play the piano. However, he was not fond of it, but his mother insisted.
His professional work included the positions of Research Professor of Surgery and Director of the Thoracic Surgery Residency at the University of Utah and Chairman of the Division of Thoracic Surgery at LDS Hospital in Salt Lake City. He had many interests as a young boy, but when he grew up and went to college, he studied medicine. He got his degree in June of 1954, completing his 4-year course in 3 years. He became an MD at age 22 and graduated with high honors. An internationally renowned surgeon and medical researcher, Dr. Nelson received his BA and MD degrees from the University of Utah. Honorary scholastic societies include Pi Beta Kappa and Alpha Omega Alpha. He served his residency in surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston and at the University of Minnesota, where he was awarded his PhD degree in 1954. He also received his honorary degrees of Doctor of Science from Brigham Young University in 1970, Doctor of Medical Science from Utah State University in 1989, and Doctor of Humane Letters from Snow College in 1994.
As a boy growing up in Salt Lake, he became interested in photography due to the fact that he would buy photoflood reflectors and lamps, thinking it would help his father. But his father never used these items, so Elder Nelson used them instead, which helped him develop his interest in photography. At age 10, he ran errands for his father's advertising company. Later, he worked part-time in a bank, the post office, and a photo studio. He was noted for his perfect pitch, and at an early age of 14, he performed in a cappella choir and sang in 2 operettas. In addition to all his musical talents, Elder Nelson was also on the debate team. He and his classmate won several trophies in high school. He was also on the football team, but he didn't play much. He felt inspired to keep his hands protected from being injured while he was on the field. His coach, W. McKinley Oswald, kept him on the bench, not knowing that Elder Nelson would operate on him 40 years later. Elder Nelson decided as a young man that he wanted to pursue a medical career. He realized this is where his talents were. He had a great desire to do research and to go into the unknown, and he had a great desire to serve his fellow man.
Growing up, he performed in musicals, and that is where he first met his wife, Danzel. They were married in the Salt Lake City Temple in August of 1945. They were blessed with 10 children, 9 being girls and 1 boy. After being married for 59 and a half years, Danzel passed away. Elder Nelson is currently married to Wendy Watson Nelson. Author of numerous publications and chapters in medical textbooks, Elder Nelson lectured and visited professionally throughout the United States and in many other nations prior to his call as general authority.
Elder Russell M. Nelson held several callings before being set apart as an apostle of the Lord on April 7, 1984. His first calling in the church was extended to him by a former priest quorum advisor. Hoyt W. Brewster, bishop in the Garden Park Ward, called Elder Nelson to be the advisor of the priest quorum, which included more than 50 young men. Elder Nelson was later called to be the first assistant to the superintendent of the Bonneville Stake YMMIA. He was then called to serve in the bishopric of the Garden Park Ward as second counselor to Bishop Hoyt W. Brewster alongside Paul W. Cox, first counselor. Together they served as a bishopric for more than 5 years. Upon Elder Nelson's return to Salt Lake City in 1955, he was called to serve as a missionary in Temple Square. For the next 10 years, he gave tours of the temple grounds every Thursday in the late afternoon. There he taught basic principles and doctrines of the gospel. He was released in 1965. On December 6, 1964, Elder Nelson was called to be the stake president of the Bonneville Stake by then Elder Spencer W. Kimball. Serving with him as first counselor was Albert R. Bowen and Joseph B. Worthland as second counselor. He served as stake president until being released June 11, 1971. Later that month, on June 27th, he, along with Joseph B. Worthland and Richard L. Warner, were sustained as the General Sunday School presidency. They were set apart on July 2nd by the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Together, they served for 8 years as the General Sunday School presidency of the Church before being released at the 1979 October General Conference. After his release, President N. Eldon Tanner called Elder Nelson to serve as a regional representative. His duties would involve the supervision of 14 stakes at Brigham Young University.
After completing his assignment as regional representative to the BYU First Region, he was given another assignment to supervise the Kearns, Utah and the Kearns, Utah Central regions. President Nelson was later called into the office of President Gordon B. Hinckley, in which President Hinckley asked President Nelson if everything in his life was in order. President Nelson responded, yes. President Hinckley then replied, good, and said to President Nelson, you will be sustained tomorrow as a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. During the Saturday session of General Conference, April 7, 1984, President Nelson's name was presented along with others for a sustaining vote by the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Elder Nelson became the 85th apostle in this dispensation. I learned of his dedication to his family, how important his wife and children were to him, and with his hectic and busy schedule as a doctor and travels with his church responsibilities, his family always remained his priority. I found Elder Nelson to be a gentle, loving father and grandfather, husband, brother, and son. He has so much patience and love for everything he did. Even though his parents were not active members during his growing up years, he stayed focused and steadfast with assistance from his home teachers and others that were good influence to him. His parents were very supportive and made sure that he and his sisters and brother received all the necessary things in life. Another important lesson I learned from Elder Nelson is that you put the Lord first. Whenever he received a calling, he would take it to the Lord. Especially being a doctor and being involved with heart surgery, he never said no to a general authority when called to serve. He accepted the responsibilities and challenges, but the Lord always blessed his life and his family.
When I started medical school, we were taught that we must not touch the human heart, or it would stop beating. Yet Doctrine and Covenants 88:36 tells us that all kingdoms have a law given. Therefore, I knew that even the blessing of the heartbeat was predicated upon law. And I reasoned that if those laws could be understood and controlled, perhaps they could be utilized for the blessing of the sick. This way of thinking is one of the things that I also believe in, and if the thing is working, I want to know how, and then I want to know how to make it work again if it stops. Characteristically, any sadness at closing one chapter in life is eased by enthusiasm for the chapter about to begin. I learned years ago from President N. Eldon Tanner never to look back. He taught me not to look through the retrospectoscope and agonize over what I have done, what I might have done differently. So I don't relive the past. Each hour had its opportunity, and I either did a good job or I fumbled the ball. I walked away from the past knowing I gave it the best I had. Once President Harold B. Lee asked Sister Nelson how it felt to be the wife of such a busy man. When he's home, he's home. I always try to be like that in my life. The example Elder Nelson sets for me is one of being all about his family and that he loves his kids more than anything else. Greg Stapley.
was growing up, I lived in the same ward as Elder Nelson. Every year on Christmas Sunday, he and Denzel would speak in sacrament. I can remember a time when I had the devotional for seminary, something to do with apples. I remembered that Elder Nelson had a beautiful mini apple tree in his backyard. I asked if he would be willing to share, and he was gracious enough to do so. He even picked all of them for me. I got to visit with him for a while, and as we did, he told stories of his family and kids growing up. It was fun to chat with him, and as he was speaking, I felt the Spirit testify to me that he was an apostle of the Lord. During my time in that ward, I got engaged and can remember him coming to our wedding reception to wish us well. I felt his love for me and my family and could see him as a normal person, if you will, and not as a general authority we see on television.
Whenever I look at stars in the sky, I'm reminded that about 4,000 years ago, Jesus the Christ, then speaking as Jehovah, God of the Old Testament, made a covenant with Father Abraham. Included was the promise that the Savior of the world would come through Abraham's lineage, and that his seed would be multiplied as the stars of the heaven. In addition, Abraham was told that through his seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. This covenant was to be everlasting, even through 1,000 generations. Abraham was promised that this right shall continue in thee and in thy seed after thee, even with the blessings of the gospel, which are the blessings of salvation, even of life eternal. From scriptures we learn that this covenant should be fulfilled in the latter days. Then the fullness of his gospel would be preached, and many would truly believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. In 1836, keys of the Gospel of Abraham were conferred. In 1843, the Lord declared to the prophet Joseph Smith that Abraham received promises concerning his seed, and of the fruit of his loins, from whose loins ye are. This promise is yours also, because ye are of Abraham. Brothers and sisters, you may also claim the supernal blessings promised to the faithful lineage of Abraham. The Lord explained that blessings and responsibilities of his priesthood are yours because of your faith, works, and lineage, the lineage declared in your patriarchal blessings. You are lawful heirs, he said. Your life and the priesthood have remained and must needs remain through you and your lineage. The ultimate blessings of the Abrahamic covenant are conferred in holy temples. These blessings allow us to come forth in the first resurrection and inherit thrones, kingdoms, powers, principalities, and dominions, to our exaltation and glory in all things. The fulfillment of the ancient Abrahamic covenant is feasible only because of the Lord Jesus Christ. It is He who has made it possible for us to dwell with God, with Him, and with our families eternally. This is His work and His glory. I love Him. I testify of Him and express my everlasting gratitude for Him, now and forevermore.